I think that we tend to shy away from the whole idea of joy. We close ourselves off to the possibility because we think in not experiencing joy, we honor our loved one. I loved them so much that there's no way I can ever have joy again in my life because I just love them so much. And I know it feels that way. But would your loved one want you to live a joyless life? So I don't say, hey, go get yourself some joy. What I say is just let your heart be open to the possibility of joy. Just be open to the possibility. And then just see what God might bring your way on any given day. Don't look for big things. Just keep your eye open for the smallest of things.
Do you ever wonder where God is at when life is flipped upside down? I'm Sherry, your host, and I created this podcast so that my guests and I could look at the good God we profess through the lens of pain and suffering. What I have learned both firsthand and through the personal stories of my guests is that the God of the Holy Bible speaks beautiful things in the dark. God invites us to give him our pain because he's the only one who can transform the very thing that was meant to destroy us. Our challenge is to trust him in the process so that we might come to understand who he really is versus who we think he should be. Listen in and discover the countless ways in which we can find God in our pain. Lisa, I am so grateful that you have taken the time to have this conversation about child loss. You have a huge heart to come alongside people to be a companion with regard to giving other parents hope, encouragement, and letting them know that they're not alone in their grief. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
I want to give the audience an understanding of the dynamic of your family. You have four children, and
Mhm.
one of them, Chandler, has heavenly birthdays now. Can you tell us a little bit about Chandler? Where was he in the lineup of birth? And did he play any sports? What was he passionate about?
Well, you know the way to a mom's heart because when you ask about their kid, and especially their kid that is not here with skin on anymore, there's nothing that does a heart better than being able to talk about them. Chandler was from day one an adventurer. He broke his collarbone falling out of the toy box when he was like less than 3 years old. And throughout his life, we would get phone calls that, okay, he's been in a body surfing accident and he's at the emergency room. He's bruised his ribs flipping on his bike. He's in the emergency room. He needs stitches because he cut his leg on his BMX bike chain, or he picked up a rattlesnake and is in the ER he was bitten by a rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was a baby, so it didn't inject its poison at that point. But that's the kind of kid Chandler was. There was always a phone call of some sort. He had the cutest little lisp when he was little. We lost him when he was 25, but he just I will never forget one thing he said to me in his little, like, I think he was probably three and a half at the time. And he said, Mom, I don't think people mean it when they say they have Jesus in their heart, because Jesus had us in his heart. And I just thought, oh my goodness. And how true is that? That Jesus has us in his heart.
Yeah.
He was a biker, the kind that does the flips and stops your heart. He was a golfer, a dancer, a hiker, a body surfer, every kind of adventure that you could have in life. That's what he loved. He was kind of an old soul. He loved to talk about philosophy and theology. I mean, just deep things. He was just, I mean, he would hug me, he'd hug me and give me a kiss. And when he was a teenager, when he was in his 20s. And I mean, how do you get better than that?
Yeah, for a son to demonstrate that sort of affection for his mother in public.
Yes, he was the sweetest kid. Not always well behaved. I'm not going to pretend that was the case. Not perfect by any stretch, but who is, but Oh my goodness. He was my baby boy. He was the last of three. So I had Chase, Chance, and then Chandler. And then I have to say, 8 years later, a surprise daughter when Chandler had been born, and I was exhausted. Like I had three little boys. I said, okay, you have a choice, hun, celibacy or vasectomy, and you can choose.
Right.
So we closed up shop, and then after Chandler went into kindergarten, I was like, I want another baby. Can we pray about adopting? And he goes, sure, wink, wink. We'll pray about adopting. So I prayed about adopting, and within a year, I couldn't zip my pants.
Uh-oh.
And my friend said, you need to go take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, why would I do that?
Right.
And I did. And it was a plus sign. And it was just the happiest day. And her name's Charlie. So she was the fourth, CH. My husband is Chip. So it's Chip, Chase, Chance, Chandler, Charlie. And now that's not confusing at all when somebody's in trouble.
No lie, because I go down the whole list
Yeah.
and include the animals, the pets,
Yes.
till I get to the right one.
And you're like, who did it, whoever it was, Yeah. So those are my kids, but Chandler he was just, I just, we always talk about the Chandlerisms. One time he ran into the kitchen and said, Mom, did you ever notice I look good in jeans? Like just random things. One time he came into the bedroom with his little sister and said, hey, Charlie, let me show you this trick. And he took a needle and thread and poked it through his earlobe. And I'm like, Chandler, honey, that's not a trick. It would be a trick if you didn't do it and it looked like you did. That was a real thing that you just did. That wasn't a trick.
Right.
And he didn't even like that was it. He didn't put an earring in it, didn't do anything. He just said, hey, look at this trick. The Chandlerisms are just, limitless
Limitless and standalone.
and stand alone. Yeah.
I did see it. Yeah, that was your boy. I did see a picture of him. I looked at your social media after we had our pre-conversation, the pre to
Yeah.
the actual podcast episode. And he is a good-looking boy. He
Mhm.
was a good-looking young man. He really was.
He was strong and adventurous and protective. If there was an underdog, somebody weaker, somebody on the fringe to be protected, he was going to protect them. He never met a stranger.
Mm.
Anybody could talk to him. And, I found out after he passed that where he worked, Board and Brew, shout out to them. They were amazing through all of it. And people would tell me, Chandler always talked to my little daughter. She colored a picture for him and he loved it. And then somebody else would tell me Chandler was there for me and listened to me when nobody else did. And some things you don't know. You hear about your kids being at other people's houses and people say, oh, they're so well behaved. And you're like, my kid?
Right.
But you hear things after something like this happens that you didn't know. He didn't make his business about coming home and telling me this wonderful thing he did. So it just did my heart so much good to hear how he impacted people's lives. I knew who he was to us, but outside of your own walls, your own family, it's just so good to hear those things.
So it did you good to hear his name. A lot of people don't know whether they should say his name or not.
Just to hear his name. Parents, I've heard this from other parents that you can forget about me. That's fine. But please don't ever forget about my child. Please don't ever hesitate to say my child's name. They still are with us. And people are afraid, and we'll probably get to this, but people are afraid that they're gonna trigger pain in you if they say your child's name. Hey, don't worry, the pain's already there. I already miss him. There's not a day that goes by that I don't remember. I am the mother of Chandler who's not here anymore. So you don't need to worry about bringing something up and, oh, is it okay? Absolutely, it's okay. And if I cry, I cry. It's okay. I'd rather cry saying my son's name than to never hear anybody say it again.
Mm. That's a good point right there. You never want to forget they were here. You can't really forget, but you never want to forget. Like you're the only one still holding the memories between you and him.
Yeah.
And that's painful, but yet you welcome it because you don't want to ever forget.
Yeah.
So it's a it's a tough journey. I will say that. And then you lost him unexpectedly and in a freak accident.
I mean, he was riding his bike to work. It was his beloved BMX bike, the one that he built all, put the parts together and all the things, the chain and all the things that you put on a bike when you know you're going to do flips and crazy stuff on it. He was riding that to work because he worked not too far from where we live. We think, and we're speculating, we think because of the time of day it was, he did not see cars coming because we drive that route every day. And we've driven it at that time, at that point in the year, and it's blinding. We think he couldn't see, and he just darted across the road to get to the other side, and he was hit. It just a life thing, that happens. And that was the beginning of 18 days. I felt like I lived 1,000 lives in 18 days, between the initial call, which again, when I got the call, I have to go back a little. We were at home, I was at home, and we were planning a family get together that night. We were all going to go look at Christmas lights at a local place that, decorates trees and all that kind of thing. We were all going to go look at lights. And I didn't know which Espinoza kid was at home at that point. I just knew, they were kind of all over doing things and we were going to convene later. And so I heard steps coming down the hall and I said, "Hey, whoever that is, can you want to go look at Christmas lights tonight? Or are you going to go with us?" And Chandler says, "Mom, I got to get to work. I don't want to be late. I love you. I love you, Chandler." Yeah. And those were the last words that we said to each other. I was shopping at TJ Maxx for Secret Angel things at work. And because it was Christmas time, it was December 15th. I had my stuff all in my cart, about to check out, and I get a phone call. "Is this Chandler Espinoza's mom?" I'm like, "Yes." "This is the hospital, and and he's been hit by a car." And in my mind, I think, okay, it's just like the snake thing. It's just like the body surfing thing. It's just like falling out of the toy box. He's going to be okay. I'll pay for my stuff and then get to the hospital. But something just hit me and I went, "Oh my gosh, he's been hit by a car." And I just pushed the cart, ran to my car and got to the hospital. And I didn't know until, I got there. This is how bad it is. It's really bad. And he was in surgery. They had to take part of his skull off because his brain was swelling, and they finally came out of surgery and said, if he lives, he'll be paralyzed. But we would take that. We were like, hey, we were already making plans saying, okay, we'll retrofit a downstairs room. We'll put a ramp by the front door. We were already thinking about rehab places he could go for brain injury rehab and for spinal rehab. We were already going there and knew that one day we would get a call saying, "Your son flipped off the whatever in his wheelchair trying to do a flip. Can you come get him?" I mean, we already knew that would be how.
Right.
And that's not quite how it went. As the days went on, the news that we heard was never what we wanted to hear. And then ultimately a neurosurgeon told us he's got diffuse axonal injury, severe diffuse axonal injury, which he said, if you can picture a canvas and someone with a paintbrush loading their paintbrush with paint and then just splattering it onto the canvas, that's how diffuse the injury is throughout his brain and brainstem. So it wasn't localized at all. Yeah, it was a hard 18 days, and for my kids, that seeing your kid in pain and then seeing your other kids in pain because your kid's in pain because their brother, their sibling is in pain. That's just about the worst.
Because you feel helpless, I imagine. You can't change it. You can't stop it.
No, not a thing you can do. Just try to love on each other and be there for each other. And so, after 18 days, we lost him on January 1st, 2019. And we're like, that just figures, Happy New Year. He's gonna make a big deal January 1st. So we'll never January
Right.
1st, that's the day that we lost him.
Mm.
And, every year that comes around, every January 1st, we there are no words to express the missing. It's just a part of your family, a part of your soul, part of your heart. It's gaping. It's gaping, and nobody has to even mention it. You just feel it in every pore of your being.
Because it changes everything. It changes you, the relationship, especially one as intimate as that, a mother and a son, mother and a child. It affects everything. It sounds like he lived a pretty full life, although short. But when I think about, as a mom, we have dreams for our children. Did you have any specific dreams, or maybe you saw some strengths that you just knew he was going to use in the future? What were your prayers for Chandler's life as a mom?
We weren't even there. We weren't even there yet. He dabbled a little bit with some community college, had some ideas about what he wanted to do. He was about like adventure. He had been to India for like 2 months with someone that said, "Hey, do you want to go to India for?" And he's like, "Sure." So he hiked and did a silent retreat and all these wonderful things and just loved that adventure. He had not honed in on what it was he wanted to do in his grown-up life. But I did find out after his injury from a writer, a professional published writer that frequented where he worked, that he wanted to be a writer. And I knew he liked to write. I didn't know he wanted to be a writer, but he met with this writer who actually was one of the endorsers of my book. He met with him and just picked his brain about what does it take to be a writer? What does it take to be a writer? Which is one reason that my book came to be. But I think somehow he would have probably circuitously come at that. I'm not sure how. So it was just kind of an adventure watching Chandler live his life.
It probably would have been a very interesting writing, whether it was blogs or it was definitely going to be travel and adventure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's always fun too, to see him love life
Mhm.
on that level.
Yeah. There's nothing about his life that you can say he held back or, he just lived all out. And there's nothing I can say that, well, he didn't get to do this, he didn't get to do that. He didn't he lived a really full life.
One of the things that I had to grieve when I lost my husband was the future that I had envisioned for us. I didn't have any guarantees, right? There's nothing written guarantee, but in your mind, that's where you're tracking. How did you make peace with God when the future that you envisioned for Chandler, or at least the future you just knew as a mom he would have, when that didn't come to fruition? How did you make peace with that with God?
Honestly, I don't selfishly it I don't remember anything except I don't get to see him anymore.
Mm.
My mind didn't go so much to, oh, but he would have done this and he would have done that and he would have done that. I envisioned that he would have done a lot more of what he already did, in addition to the grown-up stuff that he would eventually get to. It was just all about we don't get him anymore.
Mm.
That because in my faith system, I believe that he was doing all the things to a greater degree than he would ever have done in that body on this earth. That he's enjoying whatever it is that he loves, but even without limits, defying gravity to the utmost degree. So it was really more about I don't get him anymore. I don't get him anymore.
I can see your point because he is enjoying adventures that no eye has seen and no mind has conceived. So that's off the charts of anything we know.
Yeah.
Something else, a lot of my questions are crafted through my own experience, and I'm curious to know, do other people experience that as well when it comes to grief? Did you have any past traumas that compounded your grief over losing Chandler? Because when I lost my husband, I had other traumas that came forward, and now I had this hot mess, if you will, that I had to sort through with the Lord.
Absolutely. When you experience any kind of loss, it gloms on to the previous loss, and that loss had glommed on to the previous loss before that. Like I just that's my own experience, and what I've seen is that loss doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it just there's a thread that weaves throughout it. And so, for example, we lost one of our pets, sweetest little weenie dog ever, named DeMarcus, after a Dallas Cowboy, because that's my son. Sweet little weenie dog. We lost that dachshund not too long after we lost Chandler. And I'm telling you, it was brutal, especially for my daughter. And I could see it. It was the loss of a brother underneath and overarching the loss of her sweet pet.
Mm.
Personally, the loss that I had experienced when I was 18, my mom died of lung cancer. And I didn't grieve well. I didn't grieve in a healthy way. I grieved in all the probably worst ways that you could grieve. I mean, I put her makeup on her in her casket. I sang at her funeral. I was 18. Like but in my mind, I'm like, okay, I minimized it. It's just her body. It's not her heart. It's not her soul. It's not her spirit. She's in heaven. She's in a better place. This is just her body. But that's the body that held me as a baby. That's the body that would hug me when I would get home from school if I had a hard day. Those are the lips that would kiss me on the cheek goodnight and say, I love you. It were the cheeks that I would hold in my hands because her skin was so soft and she smelled like Aquanet hairspray and had Avon lipstick on and these crisp cotton shirts on her body, and that was that body, and I couldn't access that body anymore. But I minimized that and just, well, she's in heaven, and blah 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 blah. And it came out sideways. I would have nightmares. My husband would have to just console me. I would have nightmares that she was right there. She was right there talking to me, and they weren't like comforting. They were scary, and it was not good. So flash forward all these years, losing a child is just a completely different shape of loss than losing a mom. I always said if I lose my mom, I can't live, because she's my best friend. I loved my mom dearly, but I survived it. I lived despite all of my wrong strategies, bad, unhealthy strategies. But all these years later, through experience, through education, through observation, and just, I think, age, I knew there was a different way to grieve. And I feel like at this point, the loss of my mom, I didn't feel a triggering of that, except to say, wow, now I get how devastating it would have been for my mom if something had happened to me. And I get how devastating it was for her mom and dad, who were alive when her dad, when she passed.
Mm.
I made that connection. But the trauma of just losing Chandler, it didn't connect in an acute way to that original loss of my mom, which was the first profound loss of my life.
Right. So, with those two comparisons or dynamics in grief, what would you say do not do? And then what would you say, here's the permission to grieve?
Oh, do not minimize. I don't care. I mean, my heart, my soul, my peace, my assurance is I will see my mom again. I will see Chandler again. I know that. But my goodness, to minimize and say, well, but they're in a better place and I'll see them again. That is the unhealthiest thing you can do. Yes, cling to your faith and your hope, but absolutely feel what you need to feel. And if it's being mad, if it's being distraught, if it's crying and crying and crying, if it's yelling, all of that is part of the physical and emotional response to a profound loss. And minimizing it, you're just digging deeper down into your psyche to where it's going to come out sideways somehow, somewhere. So feel what you need to feel. Don't minimize it. There's 4 tasks that William Worden, who writes about the 4 tasks of grief, and he talks about there's the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief, but Worden sort of has a different framework. And he said that there are about 4 tasks that people can work through in loss and grief. And the first one is to accept the loss. And I think when we minimize, we're not accepting the loss. We're pretending like it's something other than it actually is. And so when we sit with the reality of he's not coming through that door again, it doesn't all sink in at once. It can't. I don't know that every cell of my body will ever absorb all of that reality. I don't know if it can. I mean, I know it, but there's just something that really I'm never going to touch that body again in this lifetime. But to accept this is what it is, and it is a profound loss. That is the first task that we do. We move through acceptance. And then we process the pain of grief. We can't process the pain of grief if we minimize how painful it is. So we process that pain in whatever way that is. If it's talking with friends, if it's journaling, if it's going to a counselor, if it's falling on your face in church and have people come around you, if it's on a yoga mat where you're just crying and crying, wherever it is, and you process that pain, that's a task that you can move through. And when you look at these as tasks, you somehow bring to yourself some agency. So it's no longer, I'm just a passive person in this whole process of grief. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just sweeping me along. And yes, it does sweep you along like a current that you've never ever experienced before. But your agency is, okay, I can accept this loss. I can process my pain in healthy ways. And then the third task is to adjust to the world without the deceased. And I'm sure for you, having lost a husband, there were a myriad ways that you're like, my life is so different, like in boots on the ground sorts of ways. And you have to figure out, okay, I've got to do this now that he used to do. I've got to just small thing after Chandler died, we would have leftovers in the refrigerator and I'd go, well, those are going to go to waste now because Chandler, he would mow down everything that was in the refrigerator. It didn't matter. So, and then at the store, I would start to go, oh, he would love that. And then, oh, I don't need to buy that thing. So you adjust to the world without them. And there are internal adjustments. Like, who am I now? Who am I now in the world that I'm not Chandler's mom. I'm not the wife of, I'm not the sister of anymore. Who am I? And then there are obviously the external adjustments that we have to make. And then there are the spiritual adjustments that we have to make. What do I believe about God in all of this? What does it do to my faith? What is my worldview? All of those things. And then the fourth task is finding a lasting connection with the one that you've lost while still moving forward toward purpose and meaning. And I love that you're doing what you're doing because that is that fourth task moving forward with purpose and meaning while still maintaining a meaningful connection with the husband that you lost. So I like to look at that framework because again, it gives us some agency, and it's not like I did this, now I'll do this, then I'll do this. It can go back and forth. It can be fluid, and you can do this one thing now, and then a year or two from now, you revisit it. But it helps to say, okay, I have some say in what's going on with me. I have a framework for this.
And that's very helpful to have something that's solid, because you do feel like it's just this free fall of identity and understanding what my life is supposed to look like now. How did losing Chandler affect your identity as a mom?
The way that it affected my identity was I was so proud of my brood of 4. I was a mother of 4. Had my 3 boys. In fact, I recorded a CD for moms way back in the day when people had CDs, and it's called Candy Kisses, Muddy Hugs, Songs of Encouragement for Moms. And one of the songs on it is called My 3 Sons. It was before my daughter Charlie was ever even a thought. Like it was that we were done. And it talks about the greatest gift I'll leave this world when my life is done is my 3 sons.
Mm.
And then I have my daughter. So I have my 3 boys, I have my daughter, this mother of 4. They're my best thing. They're my best thing. And when people would say, "Oh, how many kids do you have?" That's when it hit me. And I actually wrote in my book, somebody asked me this today, and I didn't know what to say. But ultimately I said, I have 4. I have 4 kids. One of them is not with me on this earth, but I have 4 kids.
Mm.
That's how it hit me. It was, I love my 4. I love my 4.
That'll never change. You're a mother of 4.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you honor Chandler's life?
Oh my goodness. Well, for one thing, my book, it just, because I knew he wanted to be a writer. So a friend of mine, with a few days after, probably 3 or 4 days after his accident, a friend of mine was at the hospital with us and said, I think you need to write a blog on Caring Bridge to keep people up to date on how he's doing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's just, I can't. And she's like, you're a writer. I think that you, because my first book was called Days of Wine and Noses, Pep Talks for Tuckered Out Moms, and stories about Chandler and my boys and my daughter when they were little. Who knew that all these years later, I would be writing a book about losing Chandler? But she said, you're a writer, and it will do you good to process through your writing, and it'll help other people. So I started writing this blog on Caring Bridge, and people started to tell me that my words were helping them, that I was processing through this. I would write an update, but I would process how I was feeling. We were leading up to Christmas, and I remember vividly writing about Emmanuel, God with us. That is the only piece of theology that matters to me right now. And so when he passed, and I knew that he was going to be a writer, I said, I'm going to write every single day in honor of Chandler, who did not get to pursue writing as a career. I'm going to write every single day. It's going to honor him and his desire to be a writer. It's going to help me, quite honestly, to process all of this every day. And from what I'm hearing, it helps other people that I'm willing to process honestly and out loud. And so I did. I wrote every single day. And in the end, I said, I want this to be published as a way to honor Chandler, his life, what he did accomplish, and what he would have accomplished had he still been around on this earth. So I would say my book is a way that I honor Chandler. Oh, another way that I honor Chandler is I do consider it a calling to come alongside other people who have lost anyone, but particularly a child. It doesn't matter how old the child is, how young, how old, if it's a newborn, if it's not even born yet, it's a loss. it's a deep, profound loss. And I do consider it a calling to come alongside as a companion in that loss for my fellow grieving folks.
And I do see that as God allowing you to take part in the portion, the redemption portion of your pain, because you're giving it purpose. You're not letting it just lie there, if you will, and unused or unmeaningful. You're taking it and becoming a voice, becoming that companion. And that is pretty powerful, because I hear over and over again through statistics that I read or other material that letting people know they're not alone is a lifeline for people, a lifeline. Otherwise, they could potentially harm themselves, or at least that's what some people are saying. Like that made me stop thinking that way. That made me change my mind. So letting people know they're not alone, that's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a club that I always say nobody wants to be in, but we're in it. And from the moms that I know, because you meet moms that you connect with as soon as you've lost a child, God brings another mom in your path that you connect with. And so I mean, I just believe with all my heart that in this horrible, horrible club, there are connections that are born that are the most profound kind of lifeline.
When you think about that first year, what is something that a grieving parent can give themselves credit for having a good day? Like I think about when I would just brush my teeth or make my bed or put lip balm on.
Yes. Well, I mean, the name of my book is First Brush Your Teeth, Grief and Hope in Real Time. And I named it that because when you're in the middle of this whole profound loss process, just getting out of bed it's an accomplishment. Getting out of bed is an accomplishment. And I thought, okay, if I can just get out of bed and brush my teeth, then maybe I'll have the energy to go to the closet and get dressed. And then maybe if I get dressed, maybe I'll have the energy to go downstairs and maybe I'll get like grab something to eat and maybe then think about what to do today. But first, if I just got to brush my teeth. So that's the just first brush your teeth. Just first brush your teeth. Get your feet moving, one foot in front of the other. Honor your loved one by putting one foot in front of the other every single day. I mean, I in those early days, I remember, and I wrote about this. I remember I always did a spinach smoothie, and I know that sounds like the grossest thing on the planet, but it's really good if you put enough chocolate in it. So you put spinach, almond milk, chia seeds, cocoa powder, frozen blueberries, all these good things and mix it up. And I remember the first few weeks, I didn't have it in me to get all the ingredients out and make a smoothie. It just wasn't in me. And I actually wrote about the day that I got everything out and made my first spinach smoothie. That was a big day for me.
So even small things, I think you can credit yourself for having a good day.
100%.
Yeah. I would push myself to make my day as normal as possible, thinking if I got back to my routine, if I got back to normal, air quotes for normal, I would get, my life would return to like it used to be. And then, of course, it's not happening. And then the Lord just spoke into my spirit and just said, it's not going back. It can't go back. Nothing's going back to the way it used to be, Sherry. This is new, but we're going to move forward from new. And one of the things, too, that he let me know that, and it wasn't right at that moment, but as we progressed through healing in time, the Lord said, Sherry, it's going to be different, but it can still be beautiful. Do you have any thoughts on finding joy, even in the midst of great pain?
Oh my goodness. To me, that is one of the foundational aspects of what I believe I am called to share is it is possible to grieve deeply, to hurt and experience joy at the same time. I believe it. And it's not a hippy dippy, like, oh, I'm just so happy. It's joy. I believe that it is possible. And one of the first experiences I had was my first Mother's Day without Chandler. And I probably most people would resonate with this. The anticipation of it is almost worse than the day. Because all you can picture is yourself crumbling and not being able to put yourself back together. That's all you can think of. And like a friend of mine who had lost a daughter told me the leading up to it is going to be probably worse than the day itself, because it's an unknown and you're imagining all of the ways it's going to hurt. And it does hurt, but you don't crumble and not be able to put yourself back together. You still move forward. But as we're leading up to the Mother's Day, I booked a fun little thing for me and my daughter to go to goat yoga. There's no yoga taking place really. It's just goats, but you're on your mat and you're watching these little tiny baby goats jump up on people's backs and eat their hair and, go potty on the mat and just jump around, and they're frolicking and they're the happiest little goats you've ever seen in your life. And I was so grateful to be with my daughter. And then just to see people in this joyful space looking at these little goats. And I was just, it was a simple thing, but it brought me such joy. And just, the next day we went to, gelato, chocolate gelato. Can you get better than that?
No.
We went on the beach and we walked, and it brought me joy in the middle of the worst pain. Like it was palpable, tangible, visible. Chandler's not here, and we all knew it. And yet there was this joy that we did have him, and we still have each other, and we're in beautiful nature. There's the ocean and then the sand and pizza, and chocolate gelato. I think that we tend to shy away from the whole idea of joy. We close ourselves off to the possibility because we think in not experiencing joy, we honor our loved one. I loved them so much that there's no way I can ever have joy again in my life because I just love them so much. And I know it feels that way. But would your loved one want you to live a joyless life? So I don't say, hey, go get yourself some joy. What I say is just let your heart be open to the possibility of joy. Just be open to the possibility. And then just see what God might bring your way on any given day. Don't look for big things. Just keep your eye open for the smallest of things.
Sounds like gratitude plays a part in that, or the choice to seek out joy.
Mhm. Absolutely. For me, gratitude, I've never had trouble thinking of things. You could ask me in any given moment, what are you grateful for? And I could list like 10 things and you'd have to shut me up. So I don't have trouble thinking of things that I'm grateful for. And I think you're right. It plays a part in part of that joy is I'm so grateful for this moment. I'm grateful for that sunrise. As much as my heart feels like it's crumbled in 1,000 pieces, I'm grateful that my eyes opened and my heart beat this morning. I'm grateful for my stupid, crazy dogs that are just not well behaved. I'm grateful for that. There's so much to be grateful for, even
Amen.
when you're just devastated by loss and grief. And to acknowledge that, to be grateful, to be open to the possibility of joy, only honors your loved one's life.
I agree. I agree. It's a beautiful way of honoring them with your life.
With your life, absolutely.
How did you avoid being known for your grief?
Oh, that's a really good question. I do remember one day writing, I'm that person now. I'm that person who's lost their kid. I'm that person who's lost their kid. and I'll never not be that person who's lost their kid. And today, it's okay that that's who I am. I'm the person that lost their kid. But I think I'm not known as a person who's stuck in my grief because I just have I love my life. I'm grateful for what I do have. And I just find so many moments of just simple joy. I love being with my grandbabies. I love being with my kids. I love being with my dogs. I love sitting down and watching stupid TV shows with my husband at night while we eat dinner together. I love, doing my Pilates. There's so many things in my life that I love and enjoy that I don't live in I'm only a person who's lost a child. I am a person who's lost a child, and I'll be the first one to talk about it. But that's not all that I am.
I know I delayed going to any sort of grief counseling, grief share. I ended up going to grief share, but that was 2 years after my husband's passing because I felt like I this was me just on the outside, hadn't gone, didn't know what I was talking about or thinking, but this is what I saw it as, where everybody would sit around and just talk about how horrible life was because they had lost somebody. And that I just felt like that was all we would do. And I was not interested in sitting around and lamenting about loss and death and all the things. But I go 2 years later, and my first visit, I was like, I should have been here 2 years ago. There was purpose. There was an outline. They gave you time to talk about your loved one, but that wasn't it wasn't a lament session. It was educating and growing and learning and healing. And so what sort of resources do you offer for yourself personally? Because I know you're a grief coach, but what other resources do you suggest?
Yeah, I did have the same experience. I went to one or two grief share groups, and it was too early. It was just too early because for me, I was like, okay, some of these people lost their loved one, and I was at a table with people that lost a child like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I'm scared because it sounds like, are they moving forward past it? Or through it? I don't know. And it kind of scared me. So I didn't go back. Now, what you're saying is absolutely true. And I think Grief Share is such a phenomenal resource for people. I have so many friends that are comfortable sitting with you in your pain. If you don't have friends like that, then that's a tough thing. But my friends, 90% of my friends, I would say, are comfortable sitting with you in your pain
Wow, what a blessing.
about it. Letting
Yeah.
just, share about Chandler and what hurts and then, I went to counseling a little bit. My husband and I talked all the time about how we were feeling. Our family, our kids, we never get together without talking about Chandler ever, ever. And I mean, sometimes he's the judge. Sometimes we'll be playing a game and they'll go, "Oh, Chandler would have said this. Oh, Chandler would have won that one." So I would say to me, the greatest resources are a really good counselor, really good, if your community, like your church community, your friends, people that are comfortable with being with you in your pain, that don't try to throw out, pat answers and, oh, you'll be over this in no time. And no, that's, you don't need that. Grief share groups like that they know what they're doing. So, and books, for me, books were huge. There were like three, and I'm in menopause, so I'm just going to say I can't remember the name of all of them, but there were three in particular that didn't sugarcoat things. They were honest and just just very real, very authentic. Those three books were like companions to me. Another book that just meant the world to me was by Edith Egger, who wrote The Choice. She was a Holocaust survivor, still alive. She's 90 something and still kicking it. She's a psychotherapist and lives in San Diego. But she wrote The Choice, and it just was so inspiring and just helped me know, I can, if she survived the Holocaust and her attitude is so amazing, this inspires me to just keep moving forward, keep moving forward. So yeah, for me, books that's where I go. I gather information around me in the form of people's stories that inspire me.
And you mentioned a book earlier too, No Cure for Being Human.
I love that book. Oh, cure for being Kate Bowler. She's just honest. I mean, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in early 30s, I think, and now is doing well. But she's written that No Cure for Being Human and another book called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. And I just love that she's so real, and that was an inspiration to me. Yeah, I gravitate to writers who are real, who don't try to put a bow on things, who don't sugarcoat things, just be real about it. But it helped me so much.
And I think it's when they're real like that, it's very helpful because grief is messy
Mhm.
and it can get ugly. And you find out that the friends that you're close to, you thought they could help you, but they can't hold the weight of that kind of grief and they just disappear. And I guess your journaling also too helped you. Hence, it got published. Your book got published. All of this journaling, and it sounds like it's very real, like and messy and complicated when it gets that way. So
Yeah,
that's helpful.
it's the day to day. So when I wrote, like I wrote every single day, and I remember being in New York City with a friend in the fall on just a little getaway. This was halfway through losing Chandler, headed into the holidays, which I knew were going to be hard. My daughter was back at home. She was going to go to a formal dance at her school, and she sent a picture of stopping by this bike. So we'd set up a bike memorial where Chandler was hit. And she went by that and took a picture with that bike. And I just remember being at dinner and losing it. And I hadn't written my blog yet for that day, but I was going to write every single day. It didn't matter what was happening. Got out my phone and I started to write, and I posted the picture. And so when you look at the book, if you look at like 6 months in, that day is what it was that day. It's not a retrospective, like, well, I do remember at month 3, I felt blah, blah, blah. If you look at month 3,
Mhm.
that's month 3. So it's how I felt that day. And what I've heard from other people who have read it, who lost loved ones, is it gave them some hope that, okay, at 3 months, this is what she did. Maybe that can happen for me. And not to compare people's journeys. We're all in it's different shapes and sizes and all of loss and grief, but it lends hope to say, okay, here's December coming into the holidays of the anniversary of the death. And it seems like there's some joy, like she has some joy.
Right.
Maybe that's possible. Maybe that's possible. So that is why I told my public publisher, and thankfully he did not ask me to change a thing. I said, it has to stay like it is because that's what it was. I don't want to fix it up or
Right.
make it prettier or that's what it was. I published it on a blog that was on my website, just Lisa Espinoza website. And so I published it. And so when people would contact me and say, your voice is giving voice to my grief that I didn't know how to say that. But when you said it like that, that's how I feel. So I have to say, absolutely selfishly, writing that blog every day and hearing from people, it
Yeah.
helped me heal. It helped me find this point of redemption in the middle of all the dark and the black. It was a point of redemption to say, this just horrific pain can be transformed into something beautiful that can be like a balm to
Mhm.
someone else's soul. And I just don't know how it can be any better than that as far as healing. It's just redemptive. I'm grateful for the privilege. I'm grateful for the privilege of being able to come alongside people with this story.
Not many people have that courage. So what a blessing that is. Did you have trouble trusting God again? Because when my husband passed away, I was like, what's next, Lord? You didn't show up when I needed you to show up. My kids, my grandkids,
Yeah.
what's next? So I
Yeah.
had to go through that particular struggle with the Lord.
Absolutely. I get that. I get that. And I think that we're all just wired so differently that what I may struggle with, you won't struggle with, and vice versa.
Mhm.
I I feel like I had grappled with that so long ago when my mom died because I fasted and I prayed and I believed if I just believed hard enough she would be healed, and I just knew she was going to be healed.
Right.
She died of lung cancer after smoking her almost entire life. So, there's some consequences that just happen with your actions. And I just think I grappled with it. So it wasn't, yeah, I didn't have anything about, do I trust you, God? Do I not? My greatest, the greatest revelation to me was pivotal, how crucial, how foundational the presence of God
Mhm.
was.
Amen.
That was everything. That was everything. And literally that going into that Christmas, not knowing what the heck was going to happen, but it didn't look good. Emmanuel, God with us. And that's still my anchor.
I'll double amen that because that's what I walked away from my experience with the Lord, because it's not that I didn't know or believe that He is with us. His word says He's with us, and I believe that He is with us. But I experienced His tangible presence, as in I felt Him in the room. And it is a feeling. I did not visually see anything. But when I was talking to Him and Him speaking into my spirit, I've never had that sort of intimacy. And I understand now why the word says, be still. Because when I was still is when I could really hear Him speaking into my spirit. Before that, it was a lot of pain and anger. It was coming out as anger. And I was just, pelting Him with questions and whatnot. And finally, He said to me at one point, now He would say things along the way. That's why you will hear me now say that God speaks beautiful things in the dark, because that's what He did for me during that time. But at this moment, I'm losing it. He just says, Sherry, real firm, like, some things simply belong to me. And that just quieted my struggle with trying to make everything add up, make sense, and for me to believe it. And who am I to question God's sovereignty? And would I even, if He gave me an answer, would I even be able to have a context to perceive it? So, or receive it? I don't know. So, well, I do know the answer is no. I would not. And so, in His kindness, He just sat with me in that tension of my pain and my deep questions. And He just offered Himself. And so, that's what I will ask for now, because He just let me know no matter which way this life twists, turns, I'm the one who's with you. I'm the one writing the overarching love story with you as the individual I created you to be. And there's a lot of hope and a lot of peace and a lot of freedom in that, because this life is broken and we're not guaranteed anything, but Christ will be with you through it all. That's what I always say when things like that, those revelations that wash over me. I'm like, God, the good news just keeps coming. It's not just the cross, like what you did on the cross. It's all of the stuff that comes from what you did on the cross. The good news of our salvation, that's great. That's the work, the finished work of the cross. But look at what He gives us in between now and being with Him. Or,
When we had the memorial for Chandler, my middle son, who has honored Chandler with he writes songs, and he's released an album of all songs about his brother. And at the memorial, he wrote this song about Chandler, and at the end, he included part of the refrain of "It is well with my soul," and that is that's the hope, that's the joy, that's the peace, that's everything. It is well. All things shall be well. It is well with my soul. That's everything.
I agree. 100%. I agree. And that's what God offers us in the here and now. We don't have to wait to heaven. We don't have to wait to get there to have all the goodness of who he is. And I believe that in that intimacy with him, that's where we get this taste, this glimpse of the Garden of Eden, what we were supposed to be living in. That's a beautiful thing, too. Let me ask you this question. What are some simple things that we can find to appreciate or ways to connect with the outside world that will keep us connected to relationship and living and hope, even in the midst of such grief?
Well, one thing, when people say, how can I help you? Let them. Let them come up with something. I had a friend that would call and say, "Hey, can I bring you a nectar juice from a nectar juice bar here?" And I said, "Yes, I would love that. I would love that." And she came and sat with me and she said, "I don't even have words. I don't know what to say." And I said, "That's about the best thing you can say. It's about the best thing you can say. I'd rather hear that than for you to tell me all of the wonderful platitudes that just, are all tied up in a bow." When people would say, "Can I help you clean out, clean Chandler's room?" Because it was a mess. Yes, yes. And my neighbor came over and helped me just wade through all kinds of stuff. And yes, please help me. After I cleaned out there was so much stuff, and we kept a lot of things and have his room. It's a neat space, but there were so many bags of things that we just had let his friends kind of go through, see what they want and whatever. It was all on the front steps. And I get this message from the charity pickup that said, "Oh, we weren't able to make it. It's going to be another week." And I just broke down crying. Like, this was hard enough.
Mhm.
Now I have to load it all back in the house. I put on Facebook, "Guys, this is what's happened." And does anybody know like another like charity organization that I can get here? Someone said, "We will be there in an hour to pick it up. We know where to take it."
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That is, to me, that the keeping connected to people, that's one of the key things. When you isolate, you just reinforce the feelings of depression, anxiety. But when you allow connections socially to people, let them help you, let them come alongside in whatever way you can come up with. They may not be able to come up with a thing, but you can think of something. It will bless them and it will bless you, and it will keep you connected to an outside world so that you're not tempted to hunker down and just be inward.
And that's a good idea too, because a lot of people don't know what to say. They avoid you because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. They're afraid to make you cry. They don't do well with crying. But if can reach out knowing that people are not reaching out because they don't want to hurt you. And so if you'll reach out, also too, I love the fact that the people said, "Let me come get it." They didn't say, "Oh, here's the place where you need to take it. Oh, here's some places." But no, they showed up.
Now,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And also, too, I think the things that we do in our normal schedule can probably fit in. I'm going to the grocery store. Can I get you something from the grocery store? And I'll put it on the doorstep if you're not interested in talking. Or I've got to be back home quick. I'm gonna ring your doorbell, hug your neck, hand you the milk, and then I'm gonna be gone. Those kind of things I think are very helpful.
I'll tell you two things that someone did that just meant the world to me. One friend had a ring made for me that said WWCD, because I written in one blog, "What would Chandler do?" She made me a ring that said WWCD. And then she made, well, a couple of other things. She made this, she's very crafty. I'm not that friend, so I'll just come sit with you and cry with you. But she made this beautiful collage of pictures that she found on my posts of me and Chandler. And then in the middle, she had the words to the Tim McGraw song, "I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. Don't know what it is about Chandler man's loving, but I like it, I love it, I want some more of it." Because I used to sing that to Chandler, and
Mhm.
he always remembered that as that I would sing to him. And then she made me this beautiful lantern that had a an Instagram post that he had made where he said, "My mom used to sing this to me and I'll never forget it."
Mm.
Those little things, like, it doesn't take a lot of money. Those are simple things.
Yeah.
When somebody knows that you're remembering their kid, that's everything.
Yeah. Mm. Just to be remembered. That's it. They're right. That's everything. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you want to include in this conversation?
I have to tell you, it's been just the most wonderful conversation, and it's been a conversation, and I love that. Just talking about one person who knows the pain of loss to another. It's just been wonderful.
I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and your generosity with your pain and being willing to be poked and prodded about that pain. I deeply appreciate that. And I know that our listeners will too. What is the one takeaway you want for our listeners today?
The one thing I would say, if there was one single thing, wherever you are in your grief journey, if your heart is in a million pieces right now, if you don't know how you're going to brush your teeth tomorrow, how you're going to get out of your bed tomorrow, or you're 2 years down the line and you just something still just you're still finding it hard to move forward in some ways. The thing that I want to say to you is just say a prayer. God, let me just be open to the possibility of joy.
Mhm.
Just let me be open to it. And then just wait and see.
That's precious because the joy of the Lord is our strength. And when we have opportunity for that to come into our life, that's a tool that will have beautiful payoff. Beautiful payoff. I just want to say thank you once again. I deeply appreciate you so much, Lisa.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and for sharing this experience with my guest. I hope you have found encouragement for today and a deeper revelation of God's heart in the midst of pain and suffering. We'd love to have you as a subscriber to Finding God in Our Pain so that you can be connected with all my guests as they share their personal experiences and professional knowledge about pain and suffering. And because this podcast is a division of the website A Life of Thrive, for more information and the various ways you can connect with us, please visit the website alifeofthrive.com. I look forward to sharing more transparent stories from the hearts of women who intimately know what it means to have their world flipped upside down, their authentic struggle to make sense of it, and what recovery and healing looks like. Till then, sweet woman, remember you are not alone and that God speaks the most beautiful things in the dark.